I hope that you are well and I hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on pronouns. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 7. And then we scroll down up until we get to our chapter of pronouns. All right. So we did pronouns in our previous lesson, right? So in our previous lesson, we did where we identified pronouns in the antecedent. We used the pronoun that agrees with the antecedent, and then we had to choose between subject and object pronoun. So today, our chapter is pronouns, right? And we are, which is English Language Arts, grade 7. And the lessons that we are focusing on today under pronouns is compound subjects and objects with I and me. Compound subjects and objects with pronouns. And also to choose between personal and reflexive pronouns. All right. So we are basically continuing with pronouns, like I said, right? And that is going to be our lessons for today. All right. So when it comes to pronouns, the pronouns I, right? I is a subject pronoun. So I is a subject pronoun, and you can use it either as a subject of a sentence or you can use it as a clause, right? And it tells that the speaker is doing something and it is usually at the beginning of a sentence. For example, I am I am doing this, I am going to the shop, right? So you are it's usually at the beginning of a sentence, right? It shows who the subject is of that sentence or of the clause, right? It also tells us that the speaker is doing something. I am going to the shop. I showed my teacher something. I played football. I played netball. I ran with my friends, right? So that is the subject, or let's say the subject pronoun of I, right? It tells that the speaker is doing something, and it's usually at the beginning of a sentence. All right. And an example of the subject pronoun is after the experiment, I showed my teacher the results, right? So after the experiment, I showed my teacher the results. So once again, we said this I right over here, it is the subject of the sentence, right? It tells the speaker is doing something. What did the speaker do? He or she showed the teacher the results. So who is the speaker? It is the person, for example, I. I can be any person, right? So we said the subject pronoun I is the subject of the sentence. And the subject of the sentence, it tells the speaker is doing something. And it doesn't necessarily have to be at the beginning of the sentence, but if we had to remove after finishing the experiment, if we had to remove this, right, we can remove this. Then we can just say, I showed my teacher the results. Then it still shows that the word I or the pronoun I is at the beginning of a sentence. All right. So then we have also the pronoun, the object pronoun me, right? So we have I as a subject pronoun, and then we have me as the object pronoun, right? So I is a subject pronoun, and now we have me, right? So me is an object pronoun. So you can use it after an action verb. So we can use the word me after an action verb, right? So you can also use it after a preposition. For example, like words like at, for, of, to, with. So me, the object pronoun me, can be used after an action verb, or it can be used after a preposition such as at, for, of, to, or with, right? So for example, after finishing the experiment, my teacher showed me the results, right? And as we can see, the word me, I'm gonna use a different color. So the word me comes after our action verb, which is showed, right? So who did the teacher show the result? Show the results. The teacher showed me the results, right? And with the subject pronoun, right, it tells us what the speaker is doing, right? Which is I is the speaker. And they told us that I showed my teacher the results. And with the object pronoun, right, it is used after the action verb, right, which showed that my teacher showed me the results, or the teacher showed the results to me, right? And if we look at the next sentence, it says, or the example sentence, it says, my teacher showed the results to me, right? To is our preposition, right? So here, to is showed after the preposition. All right. All right, so now when the pronoun is again connected, right? So if our pronoun is connected with words, like with the word like Rick and I, or Rick and me, then it can be hard to tell which pronoun is correct, right? So to tell which pronoun is correct, then we need to look at the sentence without the other noun. So which means that two of the nouns is being given to us, one being the noun and the other one being the pronoun. Then we need to see if we were to remove one of those, which one it would be. Are we specifically mentioning the subject pronoun, or are we putting emphasis on the object pronoun? So in order for us to tell which one is correct, we need to look at the sentences without the other noun. And we're going to look at a few of those now. So it says, Rick and I discuss the results with the teacher, right? So Rick and I discuss the results with the teacher. So which means that we can say that I over there is the subject pronoun, the subject of the sentence, right? So Rick and I discussed the results with the teacher. So I discussed the results with the teacher is then used as the subject pronoun, right? That is if we now had to remove, for example, Rick. And if we look at this, the next sentence, it says Rick, the teacher, sorry, discussed the results with Rick and me, right? Then it means that the teacher discussed the results with me. So you with me, right? So which means that it is kind of turned around. So if first it says that the teacher or I discuss the results with the teacher, right? It shows that I am the subject, right, that is being discussed or that is doing the action within the sentence because I discussed it with the teacher. But then the next sentence is the teacher discussed the results with Rick and me. Then it means that that is the object pronoun because the teacher discussed the results with us and not the other way around. All right. So when it comes to that one, right, where we are connecting the nouns, right, with the word, then it can sometimes be tricky because now you're gonna first have to remove the one word in order to see is the subject pronoun being, discussed really, or is it the object that, that is really being discussed with there? Am I doing something or is something being done to me? Remember, if I do something, then it means that it is a subject pronoun. Or if something is being done to me, then it means that it is an object pronoun, right? So you can basically use a subject pronoun as a subject or in a sentence or a clause. So it can then tell you who is doing something. So it's like I am doing something. It tells you who is doing something, right? And usually the word I or subject, right? With it doesn't necessarily have to be I, but the subject pronoun, right? It tells you who is doing something, and it is usually at the beginning of the sentence. So the subject pronoun, right? It tells you who is doing something, and the subject pronoun is usually at the beginning of the sentence. So, other than the subject I, right? The subject pronoun I, we also have other subject pronouns, right? Such as I, which we made mention of. You is also a subject pronoun. He, she, it, we, and they. These are all subject pronouns. We can use any of these words as subject pronouns that we will mainly find at the beginning of a sentence, and it will tell us who is doing something. I am going to the shop. You are writing a story. He is playing with his ball. She is doing ballet dancing or going for ballet classes. It is rolling in the sand. We are going to the mall. They are walking to school, right? Those are all subject pronouns, and it tells us who is doing something, right? It can either be I, can be you doing something, he, she, it, we, or they, and that is usually at the beginning of a sentence, right? And once again, if we look at those, like at the subject pronoun, right, then we again are going to go over the sentence that says, after finishing the experiment, I showed my teacher the result, right? So who showed the teacher results? I did. So I am the subject of the sentence. Or we can even say, after finishing the experiment, he showed my teacher the results. So who is the subject pronoun? He is, because he showed who? My teacher, right? She did, we did, they did. because they are the subject pronouns of that sentence. They are the ones that is doing something, right? And remember, we said an object pronoun, right? It comes after an action verb or it comes after a preposition, right? So the object pronoun, we said it's either me, and it's when somebody's doing something to you. Somebody's doing something to me, right? Somebody's doing something to him, to you, to her, to us, to them. It's not we're not doing something, I'm not doing something, you're not doing something, but it is being done to us, it is being done to him, it's being done to you, right? That is the object pronoun. And remember, we said object pronouns, it comes either after the action verb or it comes after a preposition such as at, for, of, on, to, with. And your basic common object pronouns are words such as me. We already made mention of that, where we said that the teacher showed the results to me, right? And the word to is a preposition, me is the object pronoun. So the object pronoun me comes after the preposition. So the object pronouns are words like me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. And once again, if we look at this specific sentence, it says, after finishing the experiment, my teacher showed me the results, right? So who did my teacher show it to? My teacher showed me the results. So this is an object pronoun and it comes after the action verb, which is showed, right? Or another example can be, my teacher showed the results to me, right? So to is our preposition, right? And that is the word that comes before our object pronoun, because yet both those sentences shows that something is being done to me, right? I'm not doing something. Something is being done to me. Remember, a subject pronoun, right? It shows when I am doing something, right? Whereas an object pronoun, it shows when something is being done to me or to you, right? Or to the next person. All right, so now we're going to aplusstudents.ca, and then we're going to do one or two activities, and then we're going to our tests. Actually, we can actually go to our tests because we already went over compound subjects with and objects with I and me. So we already did that. So for example, if we look at the sentence, it says the stray cat fled from Bruce and, if we look at the sentence, are we going to add a subject pronoun or an object pronoun, I or me? It says the stray cat fled from Bruce and, do we say Bruce and me or Bruce and I? So we need to choose that correct one. So if we were to look at that, we can say that the stray cat fled from Bruce and me. All right, let us go to our test where we are going to select the correct pronoun to complete the sentence. So we're going to either use we're either going to select the object pronoun me or the subject pronoun I in order to complete these sentences. All right. It says reporters seem to descend on my lawyer and do we say and me from all directions? Or do we say reporters seem to descend on my lawyer and I from all directions? So, what is the correct pronoun? Is it my lawyer and me? Option one, or my lawyer and I? Option two. Reporters seemed to descend on my lawyer and me, or my lawyer and I from all directions. All right, so if we were to choose the correct one, we can then say that reporters, they seem to descend on my lawyer and me. Right, so they are descending on my lawyer and me, right? They're doing something to us, to me and my lawyer. All right, the next one says, the nurse and, do we say the nurse and me laughed ob- obling, obliging, obligingly at the doctor's joke? Sorry, obligingly at the doctor's jokes? Or do we say the nurses and I laughed obligingly at the doctor's jokes? Who is doing the action? Or is the action being done to us? Is something being done to us, or are we doing the action? Remember, if you doing the action and then we say I, which is the subject, but if the action is being done to you, something is being done to you, and then we can say me. All right. So it says that the nurse and I laughed obligingly at the doctor's joke, because who is doing something? I'm also doing it, as well as the nurse, right? Remember, the subject pronoun shows the action that you are doing, right? So I is correct. The next one says, Cassie and, do we say Cassie and me, or do we say Cassie and I met at the dance academy when we were young? So Cassie, do we say Cassie and me met at the dance academy when we were young? Or do we say Cassie and I met at the dance academy when we were younger? So which one is correct? Is it Cassie and I or Cassie and me? All right, if we were to choose the correct one, then we can say Cassie and I met at the dance academy, right? Beth Swan, Beth swam, sorry, under my, Beth swam under my sister and, do we say and me as we floated in the pool? Or do we say Beth swam under my sister and I as we floated in the pool? Which one is correct? So Beth swam under my sister and me as we floated in the pool, or Beth swam under my sister and I as we floated in the pool. Which one is correct? Is it me or is it I? All right, and if we were to choose the correct one, then we can say Beth swam under my sister and she swam under me. Right, so that is the object pronoun. So at the carnival, an artist sketched Chantal and me, or do we say at the carnival, an artist sketched Chantal and I? Which one is the correct the correct pronoun? Is it a subject pronoun I or the object pronoun me? All right, and the correct pronoun we can use is at the carnival, an artist sketched Chantal and me, right? Because something is being done to us. All right. Remember when we use the subject or just the compound subject I or me, remember I is the action that you are doing, right, as a subject. And it usually comes at the beginning of a sentence, right? You are doing the action. But when it comes to the object pronoun me, right, then it means that something is being done to me, right? An action is being done to me, right? And that word me, the object pronoun me, either comes after an action verb or it comes after a preposition. All right, so now we're going on to compound subjects and objects and with pronouns. So compound subjects and objects with pronouns, right? And we said you can use subject pronouns as as a subject of a sentence or clause, and it tells you who is doing something. And a subject pronoun is usually at the beginning of the sentence, and it is words such as I, you, he, she, it, we, and they, right? It doesn't have to be I alone. It can be any other word like you, he, she, it, we, and they, right? Because it shows that you are doing something. It tells us who is doing something, right? It is either I, it is you, he, she, it, we, or they, and it's usually at the beginning of a sentence. Then we have an object pronoun, and an object pronoun either comes after a verb, an action verb, or it comes after a preposition, right? Such as at, for, of, on, to, or with. And our common object pronouns are words like me, you, him, her, it, us, or them, right? So now we're going to our test where we are going to select the correct pronoun to complete the sentence, whether it is a subject pronoun or an object pronoun. So we need to select the correct pronoun to complete the sentence. You may not remember that incident, but your father and do we say your father and me do, or your father and I do? You may not remember that incident, but your father and I do? Or do we say your father and me do? All right, and if we were to choose the correct one, we can say, you may not remember that incident, but your father and I do, right? The loud roar of the freeway outside distracted him and his client, or do we say it distracted he and his client? What is the correct pronoun that is being used? Is that the subject pronoun or object pronoun? Is it him or he? All right, so we can then say that the loud roar of the freeway outside distracted him, right? And his client. And him comes after our action verb. The next one says, do we say she and her friends might enjoy watching the cooking show, or do we say her and her friends might enjoy watching the cooking show? All right. So do we say she and her friends might enjoy watching cooking show, or her and her friends? And if we were to choose the correct pronoun, then we will say she and her friends might enjoy watching this cooking show, right? That is an object, that is a subject pronoun, sorry, right? All right, another one. After Desmond and Ashley's amazing dance performance, do we say they and their partners celebrated, or do we say them and their partners celebrated? Which one is the correct one? All right, if we were to choose the correct one, we can say they and their partners, right? All right. So this is basically pronouns, right? So remember we said when it comes to pronouns, we have our subject pronouns and we also have our object pronouns. Our subject pronoun, right, is like, for example, I, and it tells us who is doing something or who is doing the action, right? It's like I is doing something, right? You are doing something to someone else. That is the subject pronoun. And it's usually at the beginning of a sentence. And then if we have the pronoun me, right, then it means that the action is being done to me, right? Somebody is doing something to me, but I am doing it to someone else. And then we also found out more about compound subjects. That is, for example, I, he, she, they, right? We. And then object pronouns can be either me, her, him, and so on, right? So that is at the end of our lesson on pronouns. Thank you very much for joining the class, grade 7, right? I really hope that you do have a more clear understanding of what pronouns are. All right, till next time, goodbye and enjoy your evening.